in Scotland.
Well, it was like
last week.
Today was 30. Sorry, yesterday was 31. I think was the highest it hit in Glasgow. So I was meant to be in London yesterday and today, but I chickened out basically.
Yeah. Don't want to be traveling with this heat. It's like the recommendation was stay at home, and I couldn't agree more with it. Yesterday was baking and like really, really difficult to do anything. So yeah, ridiculously hot all over Europe. If you don't believe there's such a thing as like major climate change event, it kind of happened yesterday, and it's 10-degree drop today. So it was a dramatic effort. Anyway, we are live, so we better get on with the show. Welcome everybody to Brainfood Live on Air. This is episode 23. We are motoring towards our target of 40 episodes this year. For the people who are not aware of this show, this is a weekly live stream webinar where we review last week's Brainfood that's went out on the newsletter, which you should all be subscribed to by now. And we review the conversations that have been happening in the Facebook group, which you're all welcome to join. And we also talk about a particular topic that is of our interest, which this week's going to be programmatic advertising. I am Hung Lee, your host, and I'm always joined by my co-pilot and chief promoter, Adam Gordon. Adam, how are you, sir?
Yeah, good, thank you. It's been, as I was just saying, it's been like 30 degrees here and not 40 degrees where you are in London. So it's been, much more comfortable. But it's been a hot week all around, though, in terms of lots of other stuff.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, how is the crowdfunding going? Have you smashed the targets here? What's going on?
Yeah, so the formal target was £50,000. And the reason for that was because we didn't really know what was going to happen. And if you get 49,000, you get nothing and you walk away with egg on your face. So that's why we set it at 50,000. Realistically, we thought if we do 200, then that'll be pretty good.
Yeah.
We're at like 300 now between the 100,000 that's on Crowdcube and 200,000 that's come from trade investors. So there's a couple of recruitment tech businesses in particular who have invested. So we're at 300,000. I think I know where another 100,000 is coming from. That means when it goes live to the public on Tuesday at 9 a.m. UK time, there's another 100 grand maximum that's up for grabs for the butcher and baker and candlestick maker who's outside of our industry and wants to get involved.
And that's it. So the man on the street, they've got basically a window of opportunity, probably of only a couple of days, to get a bit of candidate ID if you wanted to. So hop to it if you're interested in this. Okay, that's fantastic. I mean, I've never done crowdfund before, so it's really interesting to see the journey on that. But it looks like Crowdcube's a decent platform for it. There's a couple of them out there, isn't there? But it seems that you guys have managed to use it both on and off a platform and do quite well out of it.
I'm going to tell you the truth here. It has generated quite a lot of customer interest. One of the UK's biggest retail businesses messaged me a couple of days ago and said, what you're doing is interesting. I'm not in a position to invest, but I really need to be checking this platform out because I think it's going to help us. And then the other thing, which I wasn't really expecting, is 3 companies that have come to us and said, look, we want to do something really meaningful with you in terms of partnership type stuff.
Yeah, was it Stephen Rothberg that mentioned this? Like crowdfunding is actually a great way to do marketing for the product. So you kind of open it up a little bit, open the journey a little bit up with it, get people invited to join, and guess what? It's actually better than just hard pitching and knocking down the front door. So hopefully, worst case, you're going to walk away with a bunch of great prospects as well as some cash injection to build the next part of the business.
I talked to the founder of Stella.ai, which is a marketplace, and he's an ex-McKinsey guy, really, really super bright guy. He did a crowdfunding like 2 years ago, and it was all CEOs and chief people officers and people that got involved. And he gave me a couple of tips. And one thing he said was, if you've got another CRM, or you've got another video product, or another something that's pretty much the same as other things that exist, probably it's not the right way to go about investing. But if you're doing something that's genuinely different, it's a really good way to do it. And I think it's right.
Yeah, so crowdfund basically a good thing if you've got what is a unique product, or at least a product that is in an emerging category rather than something that's kind of reached general market acceptance, I guess. Yep.
Yeah.
Cool beans. All right. Well, anyway, let's get on with the show. Enough about you. What about recruiting Brainfood? Did you have time to read it this week? Because I know you kind of skimmed it the week before.
Yeah, no, I did.
Yeah, okay. What was interesting for you, Adam?
Well, I mean, the first thing that was really interesting to me was the pie chart, which showed which ATSs are used by the Fortune 500.
Controversial one, wasn't it?
Well, it in no way resembles what you would get if you did that with the top 500 listed companies in Europe. It's an entirely different list. It wouldn't look anything like that. So iCIMS is like nowhere to be seen really in the UK. I mean, there's not very many FTSE 100 companies that run iCIMS. They're almost all SuccessFactors and Workday if they're on a more modern one, and Taleo if they're almost all Taleo.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, for people who don't know, I've just shared the link on the chat stream there. Basically, OnGig, who I need to get on the show, actually, they're really good guys. They do an annual survey of ATSs, or ATS usage every year, and I think it's worth keeping an eye on. Rob Kelly's the man who put it together, and he's always had some criticisms on methodology and stuff like this, and I get that. And part of the reason why he's gone ahead and done it this way is to deal with some of the methodology criticisms he had before, which was, look, you're just hoovering up general usage and not understanding the difference between paid and not paid. So what he's done is basically look at the top 500 FTSE in the US, the Fortune 500, and then from their website being able to figure out what ATSs they're using for their career pages, and then marking them down as saying, okay, this company uses this product, and the results are in that link for you to review. To be honest with OnGig, I've been defending them on methodology because at least they're explained how they did it, and there's a sense where, you know, my reading of their blog post is that they recognize that it's not like the definitive statement of affairs, but it is what it is. It's the Fortune 500. These are the ATSs that power the career pages of those 500 companies, and off you go. There's the pie chart.
I think it's interesting that this is the first year where Workday actually has more of a market share than Taleo. So I did notice that as being interesting. And Tim Sackett's just made an interesting point, which is that the growth of Workday should be concerning. Now, there's various different impressions about Workday, but one thing that's really clear is recruitment gets given what they're told to use, or HR gets given what they're told to use, because Workday is a kind of it's an operating system for, I'm not sure if it's a full ERP, but it's way beyond recruiting, and indeed the recruiting function is not, you know, as rich in features and functionality as a lot of the other products that have been designed specifically for recruitment. So I know that there's mixed interest.
That's what came really prominently in the Facebook group conversation we had, because people like Jeremy Russon and Andrea Marston, who basically have implemented these products, they were telling me exactly this point. They may not be the best products as standalone ATSs, but guess what? If you're in an enterprise business, one of your missions is actually to reduce the proliferation of software that your company's using. And if you've got a big enterprise bit of software that happens to have an ATS tacked on, chances are that's going to be what you're using. And as you say, recruitment and TA often don't have the choice on this, and it's simply they're given it for it to use. So it kind of tells us a little bit about where TA is generally as software buyers. And it might be educational also for companies trying to sell into the enterprise, what the challenges there might be. Like some of the favorite products that you and I like on the ATS space don't appear at all in OnGig's sort of pie chart there. The smart recruiters, the levers, the workables, the next generation of point solutions for ATS, I think probably superior products generally. But because they are point solutions and not enterprise wide, I think they can't get in. So it's a really interesting challenge for those businesses to try and get into.
So here's the thing, though. I think everybody sets unrealistic expectations of their applicant tracking system.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, an applicant tracking system is designed to store information and enable your vacancy workflow, not even your vacancy workflow necessarily, but the hiring workflow.
Yeah,
so, you know, everybody thinks that the grass is greener and somebody else's ATS is better, but in actual fact, ATSs are not where the magic happens necessarily. Yes, in terms of things like analytics, and there's products like Workable that are doing brilliant things in terms of that, you know, analytics and reviewing your performance in recruitment. But a lot of the things that people think that they're looking for in an ATS is actually in a CRM or something else.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on that. I think, you know, the buyers get have as much responsibility as the vendors sometimes about, you know, the silver bullet solution for tech. At the end of the day, the users also have to have a little bit more awareness as to what they're buying and have the expectations in the right place. And in fact, implementation and, you know, change management, all of those factors can actually, you know, convert a really good product into a terrible use case because it's implemented poorly. So in any case, that's good research. Everyone should check it out. It's an annual survey. I think it's one of those that has become a little bit of a landmark for me. So I do check it out on that score. They've done a great job on that on Gig. Okay, what else is interesting for you?
Just quickly, that subject is people are very passionate about ATSs, aren't they? It's creative. I mean, I can't read all of the discussion on here on the side panel about the ATS because there's too much there. But you know, people are really enthusiastic about talking about applicant tracking systems.
I think they're just so depressed, you know. I mean, these are all injured people right here on the chat stream. You know, they've encountered like bad ATS experience and they're just flying straight in. And I feel you, man. I totally get it. That is how it is. But fascinating to try and address some of these points, and hopefully we'll be able to go back to it a little bit later. Okay, what else is interesting for you, Adam, last week?
Well, Lou Adler's blog about how you can eliminate first impression bias in recruitment.
Yep.
I mean, you know, I think we're a long way from being able to eliminate for humans being able to eliminate bias in recruitment at all, let alone one specific aspect to that being first impression bias. So I feel like, I mean, I read it with a lot of interest, and I actually didn't disagree with any of the things that he said. But I still feel like robots do that better than humans.
Yeah, it was the 10 guy story again. You know what, Adam? I've just shared that link as well on the chat stream. So please take a review of that if you haven't done so already. I actually disagreed on a lot of points that Lou wrote actually on there, especially about, you know, do the telephone interview first as a method of eliminating bias. You know, there's bias there. You know, someone might sound bad on the phone. I sound bad on the phone. Compared to video, which I sound bad but look worse. So, you know, it basically helps the experience, I think, in some way. But so I don't think he gets the bias right there. One thing I did like was point number 4, where he said do the 180. So in other words, you're looking at one perspective, but actually find a way you can shift the perspective of the assessor, and that may be a way in which you could sort out the bias side. So I think I shared it because, you know, Lou is a great writer and he's a great thinker. I wasn't sure that his solutions would be as applicable as they might otherwise have been, but food for thought. So check that out and have a read. Cool. What else is interesting for you, Adam?
I was interested to know why you included Recruitum in it.
Yeah.
Because it's not new.
Yep.
And it's one of lots of different sourcing tools.
Yeah.
Is there something it's done that's new? Is there something that I couldn't work out if there was another?
You're asking me if I do due diligence on the stuff that goes into recruiting Brainfood newsletter, Adam, and the answer is no.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a good one. It's a really good one. It helps you, it does help you to learn how to do your own Boolean and that sort of thing. But it's one of about 10 that all do the same thing.
So I've again shared the link there. It's basically a Boolean builder with a decent UI. Reason why I shared it is simply because it's a Boolean builder with decent UI. And I think that, you know, interestingly enough, like a lot of us know a lot about tooling, but the knowledge is so inadequately distributed. There's lots of people that don't know this. And I think that, you know, sometimes, as Christina said, you share something that's been around for a little while, but still has that accessibility, it might still be worth something. I thought it was a great tool, particularly as I said, from the kind of a training point of view. If you want to know how Boolean searches are built, this actually gives you a little bit of the under the hood on it, and you can learn some operators there, and combining operators to get the results you want. So check that out there. Okay, cool. What else, Adam, was interesting before we get on to our amazing guest for this show?
Yeah, still 2 or 3 things. We've actually got several guests, haven't we, today? But the two or 3 other things. I am everything that comes from McKinsey. I absolutely love, and I really, really enjoyed reading the future of the U.S. Kind of workforce. The future of work in the US. The bit I thought was the most interesting was the way that they categorized what they call the urban periphery, the niche cities, the mixed middle, and the low growth and rural. And the differences between those 4 categories of what's likely to happen is really concerning for a lot of different areas. But it's not... What's happening in America is very, very similar in what's happening in Europe. We talked about this a few times, haven't we, in terms of the growth of the megacities and the agglomeration. And what I thought was so interesting was 50-something cities which have, in the USA, which have carved out a niche for themselves, and the future of those cities is going to be based on those niches. And I thought that was really interesting. Powerhouse cities for one specific thing. Mixed middle, bit nervous about that. Low growth rural areas. What's the future there? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I just shared the link again there. Fascinating report. It's basically combining future work analysis and layering it on top of geography, essentially, and trying to figure out in different cities, different locations, what is the impact of workforce automation and changes of work patterns and so on. And as you mentioned, Adam, the categorization of these different types of cities, I think you're right. I mean, you and I do talk about agglomeration a lot, but you know what? I think that's a word everyone needs to know, because it's one of the reasons why the internet works. It's one of the reasons why you can sell products effectively. It's one of the reasons why people like Donald Trump are in the White House. They've got the ability basically to have this gravitational pull in terms of information and resources. And cities have that impact as well. So we are in a situation where the great cities are going to get greater. There's going to be niche cities, as according to this report, which might not become one of these superstar centers, but they'll be able to survive because they have one thing that they do better than anyone else. And then you have the peripheral stuff, which unfortunately is where a lot of the people are living. And they will struggle to compete in this environment where, the old conditions of economy start sliding away. Proximity is going to be less important, especially as everyone moves to digital work. Your immediate environment in terms of your conditions of the environmental factors are going to matter less. It's all about whether you're sitting alongside other businesses and other people that are innovating and preparing for that future. So super interesting. Are there any solutions there for us? I don't know, but you know what? Sometimes we need to just dive into some difficult topics and see what happens when we come out of the other side.
Yep, agreed.
Cool.
Okay, so one thing I liked the headline about, but I didn't. I knew I wasn't going to get time to read it, and it was on a download. So Paperfly's
yes,
in partnership with Recruiting Brainfoods. Global recruiting trends.
Yes, indeed. So
tell us the 4 key. There was 4 key points, I think.
So this is quite interesting. These guys, Paperfly did this, by the way, without my input, really. They just kindly created a landing page for me to do it. When I told them I really liked their document, I was going to help. I was going to put it into Brainfood. They're an employer branding business, so they help companies activate employer brand. And they took LinkedIn's global talent trends report, and then put the employer branding lens on it. So their theory was, okay, this is a huge report, 160 pages, whatever it is. Can we look at this through the analysis, through the kind of the lens of employer branding, and come out with insights that could help the community in some way. So they've converted essentially 160 pager to a 22 pager. And each of the major points that LinkedIn makes, it makes an employer branding point for it. Super easy, consumable, do it tomorrow type of content. I think you should go ahead and check it out. I mean, to give you an example, if you like, of some of the things that they're promoting on the back of LinkedIn's kind of view is opening the door and letting employees take ownership of some of the content. We're still in the world where if you're in a corporate business, you're policed in terms of what you can say, and the bigger the business you are, the more policed you become. You and I both know people that can't speak publicly, can't come on the show. We've had this, people who can't come on the show because they've actually been told, actually, you're not the representative for your company, you can't do this. One of the things that Paperfly are basically saying is, hey, listen, if you really want this type of content to go anywhere, you need to just sort of loosen the chains a little bit and let these guys go, because you're going to get more return for the risk that you put out. I mean, yes, there's some risk, but at the end of the day, you can get the sort of content people really want to see is not really from marketing. It's definitely not from recruiting. It's from within the business. So both of our functions have got to be facilitators for the employees to actually tell their stories.
Yep. Okay.
Cool.
One more. So the Economist's article about automation being a C-level issue.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, of course it is, because it determines what a company is capable of achieving and its market positioning. And the knock-on impact of that, of course, is therefore what does the workforce look like? So it's the CEO's issue. Of course it is.
It is, but the important point on this part was the difference between what CEOs wanted and their perception of automation, which is obviously very positive. Go ahead, let's automate. And then they sort of measured that and compared it with what the employees thought, and the employees were a lot more reticent because, of course, those things are related. CEOs see an opportunity to optimize, to increase productivity, reduce costs. All of those things mean different things to employees, which means job insecurity, which means, am I going to be replaced by a bot? So there's a disalignment, obviously, between the CEO and the employee base. That's always going to be the case, of course. Employees look after, the more distant you are from the founder of the business, the more disaligned you're going to get. But AI and automation may well be at the forefront of this. Because it's very clear what the value for the CEO is going to be. We need to do this because it's going to reduce cost, improve our competitiveness. For the employees, though, that's a problem because it means them getting sacked. So come in conflict between worker and employee. Okay, cool. Anything else? Or are we ready to?
Yeah, just one really quick, just two lines.
Go on.
Massive congratulations to our friends. They've been on the show. Sophie and Ewan from White Hat.
Yes, indeed.
Announced 16 million. I don't know if they call that Series A or B. It depends what stage it's at. But $16 million raise led by Index. Index really likes recruitment and HR tech because they invested in Beamery. They led the Beamery round, and they've done a few others as well. So, but that's just amazing. And those guys were on the show 2 weeks ago. Didn't say a thing about it, and of course
I think we can claim credit for that in some way.
Yeah.
The guys at Index were probably, 50-50 on it until we brought Sophie and Ewan on, and then suddenly they were all in. Yeah, they were all in as a result. We have a good sort of history on this, actually. I realized, we're going to talk about programmatic now, but all of the big guys that got acquired in the last 2 or 3 weeks or so, all of them are actually, all the founders are actually subscribers of Brainfood. I find out later on. So maybe there's a pattern there. Who knows? All right, let's move on. Programmatic job advertising. Before I bring Rene onto the show, I just want to make a confession and basically say I know very little about this. I am one of these people that have heard the story. I kind of know enough to talk about it. Have I ever used programmatic? Answer, no. I'm a little bit frightened to do that because I don't know and I've never used it before. So this is a learning experience for me, but I think you probably know a little bit more than me. So have you got any things to add on programmatic? Like what the hell is it and how does it relate?
Yeah, so I think my knowledge of programmatic is probably somewhere between yours and Rene's. But what I would say is, you just said you'd be frightened to use it. I'd be frightened to go and be buying adverts online without it. More to the point, it's helping you just get the best out of your advertising money. It gives you a lot of flexibility around how you buy, how you get your adverts to who, and how much you're prepared to spend on it. It's about real-time bidding, and it just automates all of the challenge that human media buyers used to have in phoning up media owners, negotiating rates with them, and flicking through massive directories of media books, big massive, like 3 times the size of the Bible, books full of information about how much it costs to advertise in different places and things like that. And it was a real scientific thing. And actually, I think the science in the programmatic platforms has made it a lot easier. That's my view, but can't wait to talk to the experts.
I was going to say, have you ever used a programmatic service to place a job ad? Answer yes, no.
No, I haven't, but I've seen plenty of demos, and I see exactly how it works. And having spent time working in a media buying agency,
I'm not questioning your knowledge, because it far exceeds mine. I'm just trying to figure out what the commonality is, and how many people have actually tried this. So, what is going on there? Rene, dude, you're meant to be on a live show, mate.
I thought it was just going to be the 3 of us. But,
no, well, actually, this is live streaming now to at least 100 people, and also there's maybe another 100 people on Facebook also.
All right. Well, at least I get to express the Dutch working culture.
Indeed, I thought it's like all grey in the UK now, but obviously the Netherlands is still like completely boiling out there.
Yeah, that's going to hit us tomorrow.
Yeah, amazing. So okay, enjoy it while it lasts, man. Okay, listen, thanks for doing the call, man. I don't want to take you away from the sun and the surf. But I'll start off with programmatic advertising. I know you know a lot about it. OnRecruit is obviously a much bigger platform than just programmatic, but it was an area that you guys had established a foothold in and expertise in before. So I just wonder whether you could give us a very high-level view as to what programmatic is. Treat us as idiots, because we are. How would you describe it to someone who's encountering this for the first time?
Sure. So before I start, shout out, of course, to Hong and Adam, but also to some other people that I see are in a conversation. I see Neil, Konstantinos, Nora, I think Corey and Leah might be on here. So I know you're all scattered over the world, and I just want to say it's pretty cool that we can do this kind of stuff, right? Because our industry kind of sucks, but because of that, it's also beautiful. So programmatic. Adam just said a lot of things, and what I'm going to say is that in the basis, programmatic is none of those things necessarily, right? Okay. So programmatic is just what it means. It means that a computer is making decisions instead of a human, right? So it doesn't say anything about how advanced it is. It doesn't say anything about flexibility. It doesn't say anything about who it targets. It doesn't say anything about that it's more or less efficient. It only says something about the fact that the computer is making decisions versus a human, right? And now a lot of things that are associated with programmatic are now happening, and that's a good thing for sure, most of all. There's also a lot of hot air around programmatic, which I'm very happy to tackle. But the basic is that the computer is making the decisions, and then we can now talk about, okay, how advanced is that, and actually does our whole ecosystem actually allow for programmatic as we would want it to be? Because, for example, there's major differences between programmatic job advertising as is being executed in the US and in Europe at the moment, because of the different landscape on the publisher side. So it's very important that in programmatic you have multiple players, right? One of the players is the candidate, one of the players is the buyer, which is the employer or the recruitment agency. Somebody just offered me a glass of water, very nice. That's the Netherlands, guys. Then so you have the buyer and you have the publisher, and that's very important to realize, right? So and then the fourth in this case is the programmatic player or the media buyer, the middleman, right? So when you look at the buyer, indeed, a buyer is in job advertising is usually very frustrated, is not digitally mature, has lots of problems when buying job advertising. It's all very inefficient, all of that stuff, right? That's where initially programmatic started, right? It was Recruitix, Appcast, and OnRecruit a little bit in Europe that about 8 or 10 years ago said, okay, now there are some publishers that are changing their business models, right? So there was not just the posting for a duration based, as you call it, right? There was not just duration based. You could buy clicks from the likes of Indeed, Azuna, and so forth. So we said, hey, there's business in there, so let's automate that. So that is where programmatic started, and very often where programmatic is still executed most on, so pay-per-click buying from job search engines, and also very often most effective, because in certain geographies these are now very dominant players, right? So the first level of automation was basically, I want to make sure that for this type of role I want to have 20 type applicants. So let's say a store manager, I need 20. But for the cashier, I only need 5 on average. So I'm going to make sure as a vendor that every time you have a new job on your website, customer, which can be a recruitment agency or a big corporate usually, I'm going to make sure that if your job hasn't hit that goal, I will buy for you from whatever job search engine out there the right amount of clicks to make sure you hit that goal. And once you hit that goal, I'm going to take that job offline. So that's programmatic where it started in job advertising. Is that clear?
Okay, it is, but I would say no. So you've led me down what I would say a garden path, and I mean that in a good way, but I'm still a little bit confused about what the environment is. So when you say buy clicks, what does that mean? How does this person buy clicks for me?
Yeah, so basically what happens is a programmatic company usually has a feed of jobs from its customer or scrapes the website of its customer. So the programmatic vendor is aware of the jobs that are online on the website, hopefully. Some aren't, but that's really shitty. So they should be, right? So that means that I have talked with my customer about the fact that if I see X type of job, this is your goal, right? And this is the maximum amount you probably want to spend on this type of role or all of these roles per month.
Okay, so
clear?
No, let me just confirm this. So I own a careers page. I am an employer. I go to a programmatic business and strike a deal to say, listen, I'm recruiting for these jobs, but for these 2 jobs, I really need to have at least 10 applicants for it. Can you make sure you get me 10 applicants, and I will pay you if you can get me those 10 applicants?
Yeah, but if you would be a large employer, which is usually where programmatic is more applied than smaller ones, you say, Rene, anytime you see a new cashier job, because I have thousands every year, right? Make sure I get 5 applicants. I'm not going to say I have a new cashier job to you. You will see it on my website or in my feed from my ATS, right? And you're going to make sure that I get 5 applications. I don't want to talk to you about this.
Yeah, right? How do they guarantee those 5 applications, man?
They don't guarantee it. That's the goal of the campaign, except if they change the business model to pay-per-applicant model, right? Which is something that Appcast mainly has done, right? So initially, it's just buying you the traffic and getting you to that goal. But if my customer doesn't get 5 applications, but 4, because that's the maximum we could get out of the publisher market that we are connected with, then okay, cool. But if I get 6, then the customer is like, hey, why didn't you stop at 5, right? Which makes sense. So that's how it starts. And then the programmatic vendor has feeds, right? That feed information to all the publishers that it works with, right? So what that means is basically, let's say, Indeed is receiving a feed from us all the time, making sure that it understands these are the jobs of our customers that we want to advertise with, and this is how much we want to pay per click that you generate towards this job on the website of our customers. Once we see there's a new job on the website of our customer that needs more inflow, we put it into the feed. Once we see a job goes offline, we take it out of the feed. Once we see it's still online, but there's enough applications, we take it out.
I get it.
Rene,
I finally got it. Yeah, go ahead, Adam.
Rene, if I'm looking for store managers, and I say, right, okay, 20 maximum. I want 20 applications maximum.
Yeah.
How is that supporting my quality of hire agenda? Because it might be the 21st person who's the best candidate.
Yes, but that's always going to be the case, right? It's the same as with sourcing. Are you going to source, like, are you going to screen the entire, how many billion people do we have on the globe? 6, I guess, in order to find the best candidate. It's just not the reality.
Yeah, but
right?
sourcing yeah, but that's a different thing, because that's about human time. So there's an ultimate stopping point. There's an optimum stopping point when you're sourcing, whereas when you're advertising, I mean, it might just be another €1 to get that 21st candidate.
That's absolutely true, but you have to, in the world of volume, you have to set rules, right? And so we look with our customers at, okay, what is the average amount of candidates that you need for this type of role to fill it, right? And if that's 20, okay, cool, we're going to aim for 20 or 25, right? And you usually see it work out, and sometimes it doesn't. And then they say, hey, can you actually activate it again? Cool, no problem.
Yeah, but it's still, okay. I do understand that. I understand that, because you could, I mean, nobody wants 1,000 candidates for one job. Absolutely, of course. However, those 20 candidates, those first 20 candidates, I mean, that could be the 20 candidates that are the most desperate for a job, and they're spending the most time on job boards. So that may well not be the best 20. It might just be the 20 that's in the market right now.
That's correct. That's correct, though, Adam. But that's true for any advert, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
and that's for any inbound marketing that you do. There is a maximum on either time that you put the ad on there, or the amount of that you spend. There's always a limit. But I will tell you, most of my team have been hired by inbound marketing, and they're pretty brilliant people. And are they the best person? For sure they are not. Am I the best person for my job? For sure I am not. But that is not business. Who cares? That is not the best person. We need very good people. And that is something that can scale. And if you see, okay, on average I need, for example, internally, I think I need about 50 applications for a sales executive to fill the role, right? Cool, I'm going to aim for 50. And if in those 50 I don't find anybody that is up to my minimum standard, which is actually very high, then I'm going to keep continuing. If I do find somebody that, goes above that, and it's multiple, then okay, I've picked the best one. But it's all about setting your hiring standards, knowing, okay, this is the average I need in order to be able to at least have one out of them that can jump over that bar, and going from there. And then you have already hired probably, for the roles that inbound marketing works for, this works for, let's say, 90% of the time. And the other ones, you need to do some manual work, or add some more budget, or start sourcing, all that stuff.
So listen, I'm not saying I don't understand your point. I do understand your point, but let me contextualize it in a different way. It's like LinkedIn going, right, okay, you can post this advert, financial accountant based in London. And then the advert goes out and says, first 20 applicants will be considered. That's it. Nobody's going to be impressed with that.
Yeah, but that doesn't work like that, because it's not like 20 people apply within 5 seconds. Usually, even a programmatic campaign, it runs for 2 to 4, sometimes 6 weeks to hit its goal, right? So it's not like that. And also, I want to debunk this myth, right, that some applicants are way better than others based on where they are on the internet or the time that you advertise. Come on, guys. It is inbound marketing. You fish with a big net still. I don't care about all your hyper-targeting bullshit. You are fishing with a big net because it is inbound, and you will have to find the diamond in there, right? It is still a game where you automate that you will get the right volume, right? And then it's your job to screen through those. Using automation, assessment, interviewing techniques, the whole shebang.
Yeah. I think I get it, and I want to support Rene here, even though he clearly doesn't need it. But it's all about firstly understanding what is the average ratio of applicant per hire. I think you don't go programmatic unless you have that concept. So it's typically a repeat role. It's a role that you're familiar with. You kind of have not. It's not something you've recruiting for the first time. You know what the numbers are, and you want to put it into a way you can advertise for it. but you can then modulate how much you're going to get back. You don't want too much traffic. You don't want too many, because if you put a job out there and there's 1,000 people coming at you, you only need 20. Actually, you've got a candidate response problem, candidate experience problem, potentially employer branding problem. You don't want that. So it's a way of really making sure the ad stays live at the right time, at the right audience, and getting the right people. Okay,
yeah,
Rene.
One thing that I would like to add to this though, Hang, is that I do see a case for massively over investing in job advertising when you do have the right tools for assessing. That was a beat.
Right.
Just keeping you all posted about my adventures here. So if you have great ways to assess talent, right, without human interaction, then I would make a case for massively over-investing, because one of the basic problems within recruitment is that almost everybody who advertises with jobs heavily underinvests. The budget is just ridiculously low, right?
Yeah.
And so now we, through being programmatic vendors, we're starting to educate. This is the minimum you should be spending. But actually, now I'm thinking about it, if I, for example, need to spend €1,000 for my sales executive role on average to be filled, right? I'm happy to do that, cool, because I know what the outcome of that person is in my business. But what if I could find a way where I would be able to invest 10 times that, attract 10 times more candidates, and hire a candidate might be 1.1 or 1.2 times better than that initial person I hired? That's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
I'm a big... I hate everybody who's trying to save on recruiting, right? It's just, that is like the last thing that you should be saving on, right? You should be heavily over-investing. You should be heavily over-investing, not just in recruiting, but also in being a great employer, actually, because otherwise all of this
is the message we want all the people to hear. Everyone needs to spend more money on recruitment and recruitment tech. Quite right. All right, Rene, listen, I feel guilty for keeping you out of the surf.
That's okay.
So I've got to kind of let you go. Adam, you got one more thing to say?
Really final quick question, Rene. Have you got like a massive crowd around you all listening to this? Because like I believe it's something like 35% of people in the Netherlands work in recruitment. So
I do have a massive crowd here, but
but they're not listening to you.
No, and due to modern technology, they all have their own earbuds.
Okay.
Yeah, that's amazing.
They're all on their own podcasts.
They've signed into Brainfood. They've signed into Brainfood Live.
Maybe they're just watching it from the Brainfood Live. Exactly. All right, Rene, listen, I'm going to let you go, man. Thanks so much for taking the call, and obviously you've got better things to do. Have a very good rest of the day and great weekend. I'll catch up with you soon, man.
Sure.
Cheers,
Happy
Rene.
weekend, guys.
Take it easy.
Bye.
Why is it Dutch dudes are always on the beach? Wasn't the last guy we had sort of talking, Mark? I think he was also on a beach somewhere. It's like, I don't understand this. Okay, very interesting. Rene's actually taught me the basics of programmatic. I get it now. It is literally about keeping the job on at the right time. Basically, you don't want it on for 30 days. You want it to hit a certain number of applicants, and then you need it to disappear. And it does that for you. That does the job. I get it. Okay, excellent. Let's move on because we have a number of guests to invite. I think we're going to try and get Steve on. He's been on before, our good friend Stephen Rothenberg. I wonder what he can add to the show here. I hope he's not on the beach. Actually, I hope he is. Go ahead.
He's not because I spoke to him about an hour ago.
Did he? Okay.
Do you know, did you get my joke there about like, they're also good at recruitment in the Netherlands because 35% of people in the Netherlands work in recruitment? It's something like that. They're all.
It's not that many. It's not that many.
100% of people in the Netherlands are on LinkedIn.
They are. They're the most LinkedIn people on the planet, aren't they?
They are.
So credit to them. There he is, Steve Rothenberg. Steve, how you doing, man?
I am good. I just have to say that Rene totally beaching.
I know. We are indoors and doing what we can in our labors of love, but he's on a beach and doing it from there. So what can we say?
And don't worry, I'm not going to take off my shirt like his was. He can get away with that. I can't.
If the audience demands, Stephen, you're going to have to comply.
The audience would be insane. That would be
So listen, Stephen,
Yeah.
let me just, so I think you saw some of what Rene had to say there. I just wanted to touch base on some of those things. What other things would you add to his description of what programmatic is? Particularly, he talked about the early stages of where programmatic is. He talked a little bit about the relationships between the buyer, the publisher, and what have you. Were there any other missing parts of the ecosystem we should talk about a little bit more here?
Yeah, so sorry, Stephen, just one other thing to add to that is you've got the added perspective of being a media owner as well as a programmatic technology provider.
Yeah, thanks, Adam, and that's really true. So just sort of for some context, so I'm the founder of College Recruiter. It's a job search site. We're involved in the programmatic and pay-per-click on both sides of the fence, which gives us a little bit more insight. So Rene helps his employer and recruitment ad agency customers purchase traffic, candidate traffic, right? And the next guest, who's also fantastic, also one of my favorite people, Leah, her company Appcast kind of does the same thing. But Leah, like me, they're involved a little bit on both sides. They're both buying traffic and selling traffic. So we have customers, employers that buy candidate traffic from us programmatically or pay-per-click or both, which is a nuance that I think we should talk about. And we also sell traffic programmatically, pay-per-click, or both. So we're both buying and selling that way. So everything, quite literally everything that Rene said, I thought he said very well. There's no way that I could do it better, but there were some things that just probably in the interest of time that he wasn't able to cover, but I think would be important. So one thing is there's a big difference between programmatic and pay-per-click.
Right.
So programmatic, as Rene said, basically is just a machine run deciding, where to run your ad and also for how long. So like Hung, you said, you want to have it there for the right time, but if you've hired the right person after 5 days, take that ad down. Programmatic does that for you if it's implemented reasonably well. On the other hand, if it takes you 60, 90, 120 days to find that person and you continue to need that candidate flow, programmatic is going to keep that ad running, again, if it's done reasonably well. It has nothing to do necessarily with cost per click. A lot of times they're used interchangeably, but if you have job slots, as a lot of people would call them, where you can, you might buy a job posting on, say, LinkedIn, and you can run one job for 5 days, another job for 12 days, another job for 7 days, and just pay one flat fee. You can use programmatic technology to determine when to replace the first job with the second. So even though you're paying $300 for 30 days, programmatic is deciding which ad to run. I need 100 applicants or 100 clicks in order to feel comfortable that I'm going to have that right candidate in the pool. And so when you reach that number, programmatic says, stop running that ad, now switch over to the next ad. And then that second ad runs for as long as it needs to.
Who's making the decisions on is it a recruiter, or is it a recruitment marketing team, or is it the product that makes a decision around how many clicks you need in order to get X number of applications in order to be comfortable that you fill your jobs?
Do you want the answer who should be or who is?
Give us both.
All right. So who should be? This is the difference. If any of you guys know Robin Schooling, she's one of the most hysterical TA leaders in the U.S. She speaks at a lot of conferences. She just posted an article to her blog about conference HR versus real world HR. So let me answer your question with conference HR. Who should be making that decision is the talent acquisition leader. Talent acquisition leader should know that for this customer service job in this location, we need to have 100 candidates going to our ATS, because those 100 candidates will likely convert into about 10 applications. And then if I get 10 applications, 7 of them are probably going to be crap. 3 of them are going to be good, and I'm going to hire 1.
Yep.
Okay, that should be the TA leader. Real world HR, very, very, very few of them know those numbers. We at College Recruiter talk to a TA leader who's been in the industry for 10, 20, 30 years. Today, more of them, not most, more of them know those numbers. 2 years ago, almost none of them knew those numbers. I just had a conversation yesterday with one of the world's largest hospitality companies, and talking to the person there who is in charge of their cost per click and programmatic ad buying. And we get all the way through the process. This is the budget. This is how much we want to pay per click. These are the jobs we want to spend. And then she says to me, so how are we going to know that these candidates come from College Recruiter? It's like, well, remember at the beginning of the conversation, we were talking about the ATS and the source tracking code. We're going to use your source tracking code, so you'll be able to automatically identify it. And she's like, an ATS can do that? So it's like, okay, if your level of knowledge is not yet at the point where you know the basic functionality of your ATS, then you're not ready for programmatic.
Stephen, I think that expectations are a bit different in different parts of the world, and I think that a TA leader in a large company in the UK or the Netherlands who didn't know those numbers would be fired. I would not expect to meet a TA leader who doesn't know how many clicks they need to get the number of applicants to fill the job.
Interesting. I think if you took every talent acquisition person, from recruiting coordinator to senior vice president of talent acquisition in the US, there got to be tens of thousands of them. If you put them all into a room and you ask them, do you know those numbers? Probably 99% of them would say yes. And if you had them demonstrate whether they actually knew those numbers, I bet you only 5% would. Now, that's not saying that they're dumb. I just think this is a new world. They haven't been trained to do this. And like I say, the level of knowledge in the last couple of years is just rapidly exploding. Another thing I wanted to make sure that we sort of talked about, if we could, is this cost per click side of it. Because some of our customers are not doing any programmatic advertising with us at all. There's no machine deciding what ad to run for how long, but they are buying advertising on a pay-per-click basis. So rather than buying an ad for $300 for 30 days, they might say, we want to have you drive 150 candidates to our website, whether that takes 3 days or 30 days or 60 days, and we're going to pay you $100 or $300 or $600. I did see one of the comments earlier about somebody was basically, I think, thinking of programmatic and cost per click as a way of saving money. And I think if you look at it strictly from an efficiency standpoint, you're missing the boat. It's also about effectiveness. If you can save money, but not hire the person you need to. And that just does not help your organization. So programmatic and cost per click also allow you to scale. Some of our customers need to hire dozens or hundreds into the same role. Think warehouse positions. Everybody's a part-time warehouse associate, but we need to hire 100 of those people a month. Well, how do you do that with a typical job posting ad? Typical job posting ad on a typical job board is going to send you enough candidates that you should be able to hire one person. And if you need to hire 100, are you going to run 100 ads on 100 job boards? But by spending more on that ad, our site and a bunch of others will drive far more traffic to you, so that you can.
How do you drive the traffic, Stephen? Do you then distribute that job to other places, basically an Indeed-like sort of service, and they'll see it, and that'll get the traffic to the end point?
Yes, that two ways. You hit the nail on the head with one of them, and Leah. And I'm going to make sure to leave time for her. But so Leah's company, Appcast and ClickIQ, we use them to distribute our job postings. And then we have publishers underneath us, several hundred college career service offices, several hundred college newspapers, other career sites that we send. So if you're an employer, you post a job with us, that job's going to run on College Recruiter. And then we send it out to other publishers. So even if, to Hung's point, you've never thought that you've run a job posting on a programmatic basis, if you're working with any of the major job boards, you are, because they're driving traffic programmatically. So you might not be doing it directly, but I guarantee you most of your job board partners are. There's nothing wrong with that. They're out there helping you get the candidates that you need. How they do it, as long as it's legal, as long as it's moral, don't get into it. Let them do their job so that you can focus on engaging with those candidates who have already, raised their hand and said they're interested. Another way that we do it is that we prioritize the jobs on our site. So if Adam pays $2, if you're both hiring the same people, same location, you're kind of have restaurants across the street, you're both hiring servers. If Adam pays $2 a click and Hung pays 50 cents a click, which one of you is likely to be more motivated to hire the candidate that we sent? It's going to be Adam, right? So we're going to send that candidate, given a choice, we're going to rank Adam's job above Hung's because Adam is demonstrated by a higher cost per click that he's probably more motivated to hire that person. So we're going to send more of those people to Adam than we will to Hung.
The problem is that Hung would get back to the candidates quicker, book in the interviews and get the hire by the time I'd actually responded. So,
yeah.
But
the job board isn't going to know that. The job board has very limited data. We're going to see the job title, job description. All of those things factor into relevancy, which job ranks first. So does cost per click.
Yeah, this is fascinating, Stephen. I think you've managed to unpack what I think is quite a complicated sort of ecosystem in a very understandable way. So thank you very much for all of that. It probably is one of those things that isn't that difficult when you get the grips of it, but because there's all kinds of moving parts that way if you're on the outside in, I think it can be very intimidating to look at.
So I respectfully disagree. If anybody saw the first Shrek movie, there's a famous scene where Shrek is saying that he's like an onion. Right, and Donkey's like, you taste bad and smell bad. It's like, no, onions have layers.
It's a rabbit hole. It keeps going down, right?
It is. It gets really, really complicated really, really quickly. And that's my point about if you don't understand basic functionality about your ATS, you're not yet ready for programmatic. In most of the enterprise level customers that we work with, and that's the bulk of our customers, if they have 20 people in talent acquisition, they probably have 2 that really understand programmatic and pay-per-click. So the enterprise gets it, but most of the individuals don't. And that's fine. If they've got 2 people there that understand what they're doing, they're good.
If you have one recruiter out there and he or she wants to know, is there a place to go to figure out programmatic? Like, how does this person get from the desire to know more to actually getting to the point of being one of these 20?
Sure. Okay, so there's an association it's a corporation that sort of is an association called TA Tech, TATECH.org. Peter Weddle's group.
That's right.
We're active in it. Our CEO, who's also my wife, Faith, was on the board. I know Leah's very involved in it as well. Rene, I know, is going to a conference of theirs in the fall. But in the spring, 3 years ago and 2 years ago, they had the conference here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and it's all about programmatic. It's a one-day conference about programmatic. A couple of months ago, they had it basically down the road from Leah in Boston. And they're also, I know, looking at doing one in Europe. And I probably shouldn't say more than that.
No, it's fine. I'm actually on their in fact, Rene and I are both on their advisory board in Europe, and I think it's happening in November. In London.
The programmatic, it's a different one for programmatic. There's going to be a one-day programmatic
consecutive
conference.
Days. So it's consecutive days. I think one's programmatic and the next one's recruitment, general recruitment marketing.
It's a different event than what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I see the one you're talking about, Steve. Actually, it's a programmatic tech event. So that's the one place, if you wanted to check it out, you should go there. And also, I think TA Tech produced some interesting landscape type reports as well, which give people at least this overview and understand a little bit about how the ecosystem fits together and which are the players within that ecosystem. So also worth checking out.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic.
If I might raise one problem, and maybe this is a discussion for another day, and I know you want to get Leah on, and you'll love her for the people who don't yet know her. I see a big issue in this industry with the tension or the conflict between reducing cost and improving workforce productivity. So the more you just look at programmatic and where's our lowest cost per click, where's our lowest cost per application, where's our lowest cost per hire, the less diversity and inclusion you have. And the less diversity and inclusion you have, the less productive is your workforce. And that's something that almost nobody in our industry is really grappling with. A candidate is not a candidate is not a candidate. If you get 100 applications, they're not all the same. And if they all come from the lowest cost provider and you get 100 white males that are all from the same school or background, that might be your lowest cost path to hiring that person. But 3 years from now or 5 years from now, your whole workforce ends up being like that. And that's going to be very detrimental to your business.
You know what? There's a good bit of research. Thank you for that, Stephen. Very important point, because I think you're right. If we optimize and we kind of overly think about efficiency, we're going to end up with problems with diversity. And people should really check out the issue 146 of Recruiting Brainfood happening on Sunday, because one of our friends has actually produced a very interesting product, which I think is going to be trying to deal with that. Namely, what is the gender and ethnic diversity of the candidate base of a particular job board or a particular online platform, and then you might know when to put your jobs there if you're looking to hire, diversify your talent pipeline. So keep an eye on Recruiting Brainfood 146 out on Sunday. Stephen, listen, you've been amazing. Thank you so much for your time. I'd love to keep you on, but I want to get Leah on and make sure she has time to talk and explain her side of things. So thank you so much for your energy today. Definitely going to get you back on. It's the second time you've been on the show. Each time you leave us wanting more. So we'll get you back at some other time, Stephen. You have a great rest of the day, my friend.
Cheers.
This is reminding me of Lee Griffiths, who's now at TMP. I heard him talking on stage about 2 years ago, and he said, content might be king, but distribution is queen, and she wears the trousers.
Yeah, I like it. Yep,
That's how important this is.
Yeah, you know what? The distribution thing is something I think you and I, outside of the programmatic space, spend a lot of time on. For me, it's more about the network and audience building and stuff like this. So it's not particularly technical, but it's very clear that if you have an audience that pays attention or a way to reach those people, reach is probably the word, it's actually super powerful. And you don't necessarily need to have super amazing products. You just need to be able to reach them. And this is another angle to that. Anyway, let's bring on Leah. She's been very patient. I need to apologize before she even comes on air, because she's been waiting 15 minutes to come on. My bad timekeeping once again. So hopefully we can bring Leah on from Appcast, which of course, very excitingly, I think they kicked off this buying spree, didn't they? When they're the first to go over the last couple of, they were, weren't they? There she is. Good morning to you, Leah.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Oh,
Hi, Leah.
thank you very much.
Hi.
Thank you for being patient, Leah. I know you were meant to come on a little bit earlier, but we had some people. We had Rene on the beach, for instance. He wouldn't get off the line. So
I was at the pool, but I decided I needed to come in.
To get dried and put your clothes on.
Yeah, I thought it'd be inappropriate.
Great. Leah, I don't know whether you heard any of the commentary that Steve and Rene had put forward, but if you did, I wonder whether you could kind of think about any topics those guys didn't cover that you think is pertinent to raise before we talk specifically about Appcast and you know what's going on with you guys.
Yeah, I think the last piece of all of these components that these guys were talking about, there's two components to think about. One is the data itself. So I think somebody said, should the recruiter, should the recruitment marketing, should the job board, who gets to decide how many clicks and what price points and all this data? There's enough data in the market, and if a good platform has enough data, it should be able to provide that to the client, at least a starting place, until the client can actually give you enough data to make good decisions. So programmatic has a data component in the understanding that this particular type of job or this particular customer needs X number of clicks to convert to a candidate, it needs Y number of candidates to convert to quality, to convert to a hire, right? So that data all exists even if customers don't know how to get their hands on it. And good platforms know how to help customers unveil that data and use it appropriately. The other piece of all of this, the hidden component of programmatic is actually candidate experience. So I always tell people, candidates don't get mad at brands when they never see a job that they never applied to, that you never called them about. But man, do they get upset when they spend quite a bit of time researching a job, going through your gauntlet, and it's a gauntlet, and you don't call them because they are candidate 465 for your job you filled 3 weeks ago.
Right. Such a great point. Great point.
One of these little sort of side benefits of good programmatic platforms is getting those jobs out of market as fast as possible. So candidates are actually applying to jobs they have a realistic chance of getting.
You know
Shocking,
what?
I know, right?
No, but Leah, you know what? You've actually introduced something which reminded me of a conversation I had a long time ago with Chris. And I didn't actually put two and two together because Chris and I had a conversation before he started Appcast. And he wanted to kill the CV black hole and all this type of stuff. And then it was only after, the big news happened. I thought, hang on, Chris just exited here. But you've just brought this back. Of course, a dead job online. How many of those are out there? How many of those jobs, you can't even know what percentage.
There's 7.3 million jobs in the U.S. market right now. And I assure you, they are not all open right now, even though they are open.
But they're not really, right? They're kind of, exactly. There's nothing more frustrating.
And in the secondary of all that is we've taught candidates that they need to apply for hundreds of jobs to get one because you were a candidate 465 and you're not getting that job, so you need to go apply to another one. So there's this whole cycle that we as an industry need to break.
And there's people out there that understandably are frustrated because imagine having to go through process after process, read employer page after employer page, try and tailor some sort of message, which we also recommend you do. You need to tailor your message. You need to say something interesting about yourself and all this. Don't send anything without a cover letter. I saw that recently. Someone tweeted out. I thought, hang on, we're asking too much of the candidate and actually promising nothing. So if Programmatic can find a way to actually get rid of dormant or dead data, then that would be amazing because it's not just no, it's actually negative. It's a distraction to everyone else.
It's just a better life experience, isn't it? You've got things like on your screen, which are things that are interesting to you and you want. It's not just about jobs, it's about everything else. It's about, YouTube videos and things like that. Everything's better, gives you a better experience online. It's all designed to be addictive though.
It is. I mean, thankfully, job boards and job adverts are not designed to be addictive because ultimately, I think most people, it's not an attractive thing to do psychologically to have to appeal to companies to take interest in them. So I think there's probably a psychology there that we're never going to get over. But if we can eliminate some of the worst parts, basically misinformation, people might rightfully say a job that's advertised as live, that's been filled, that's misinformation, man. And that's going to cause trust factors throughout the entire system. So, if Programmatic can get rid of it, I think that is a very important point that you've raised, actually, Leah. Amazing. We're talking about Appcast. We might as well just, talk about Appcast. So you guys exited. I think you kicked this off, didn't you? You kicked off the big kind of cascade.
Who knew? I mean, it's been a busy 3 weeks.
It has. Okay, tell me why the market's hot. Why are these big old companies buying these cool young companies? What is so good about programmatic tech that these big players currently don't have and think they're going to get by buying you guys?
Well, I think if you take a step back, I always say that the recruitment, marketing, and recruitment industry has the path forward has been paved in gold. We just have to pay attention. And it was paved in gold a long time ago by our friends in the marketing ad space. Right. In the recruitment marketing space, we operate a number of years behind for lots of reasons. I know this might be a surprise to everybody, but there's no such thing as real time in job advertisements. Rene kept talking about feeds are the bane of my existence. We have not, as an industry, adopted this crazy technology called APIs. I know it's weird. We don't know how to do, as industries, real-time bidding. We don't know how to do reverse auctions. We as an industry have a lot of work to do. And the first step of that is to stop simply maximizing profit against a customer's individual demands and start solving the problem the customers actually have, which is customers don't need candidates for 10% of their jobs. Customers need candidates for 100% of their jobs. They wouldn't be putting them out there if they didn't want candidates for them. And we can all argue there's a skills gap and their jobs are ridiculous at times and they actually do want unicorns. And no amount of programmaticing is going to solve that problem. But for the majority of jobs that go to market, they are real jobs that real people can fill. And a lot of times, especially in the pay-per-click market, we run out of money before we hit to those candidates. And we run out of money because we have this great stat internally. 36% of the candidates that you will acquire through a pay-per-click advertising solution will go against only 6% of your jobs.
Right.
There's a huge disproportionate number of candidates against jobs if the job boards are left unchecked.
You know what, Leah? Stephen mentioned that there's kind of like a market confusion between PPC and programmatic. Do you think that confusion actually has harmed programmatic in some way? Like people might have tried PPC first and then thought, oh, this new way of posting job ads doesn't seem to work, and then have just lumped programmatic in with it. And is there an education piece that we all need to get on with here?
I think there's a secondary, which is the job sites are protecting revenue and protecting some of their own assets are also selling against this idea of programmatic because it is actually in the interest of their clients. And interestingly, the folks who are selling against it tend to perform the best in programmatic. So the irony hasn't lost me on that. But the sales folks, the individual salespeople are scared of change, and this is change. Yeah. And so I do think that the market confusion is actually led by the job sites.
Oh, you think there's some nefarious sort of
not
industry?
Nefarious. No, I would never say.
Vested interest, let's say.
They are operating in their own, to keep their client and keep it at the goals that they've got for the client. And I don't know if that's always the best option. But I do think the ad agencies, I think, Rene, I think the folks at Recruitix have done an incredible job over the last 5 years of educating a market and helping them understand that programmatic isn't pay-per-click, although it has some levels of dependency on it. But it does help the client overall get more out of the budget dollars they have available. And that's really it. And when we say all, we aren't talking about candidates. We're actually talking about hires. The whole point of this, we're all measured on hires. We're not measured on candidates. We're not measured on quality, although that is a KPI. We are measured at the higher level. And so if programmatic does its job right, it's going to help you get to the hire that you're looking for across more of your jobs at a shorter time to fill. That's the goal.
Yep. That's amazing. Really interesting to hear you say all of those things. Adam, I think you need to go, don't you?
I do. Really sorry, everybody. I'm going to bow out at this point. Leah, really nice to meet you. Thanks to Rene. Thanks to Stephen. Really enjoyed the show. Thanks for all the questions and stuff like that. Sorry I'm leaving a little bit early. It's 11 minutes late, but bye for now.
See you later, Adam. One thing everyone needs to know about Adam Gordon is that he clocks in and he clocks out. So when he's over, he's gone. I saw him checking out 5 minutes ago. So I get that. You need to leave, Adam. I mean, do you want me to kick you out? There you go. He's gone. No, that's fine. So Leah, a couple more things on this because I know you're busy as well. But so Appcast have come in. We've also seen things like Indeed getting into ClickIQ. We've seen Perengo go. All of these companies, these big players. What is the future then for how are they going to integrate programmatic into their wider play? Do you think?
I think this is a great question, and I can't answer what our friends at TMP are going to do with ClickIQ or what our friends at Indeed are going to do. Excuse me, TMP with Perengo and ClickIQ and Indeed. I'm sorry, getting it all crossed up now. What I know is that as Appcast and with our friends at Stepstone, we are remaining independent. We still work with everyone. This is a collaboration game. We all win if we work together, and sort of it gets ugly fast if we all start trying not to work together. So from our perspective, business as usual, continuing to work closely with Indeed, continuing to work closely with everyone in the US market and the European market. Programmatic in its sort of core is to serve the interests of the client, all of our client. It's not my client, therefore not your client. It's our collective client.
Yep. Absolutely. And just explain who your client is from Appcast, Leah, because Stephen mentioned his business kind of plays on both sides. OnRecruit maybe just helps the employer side a little bit more. Where does Appcast sit in this ecosystem right now?
So Appcast is a software platform, and we go to market two different ways. One as a software that helps run programmatic programs for a number of different types of companies, such as job boards who run their own programmatic programs, big staffing organizations, big RPOs, the third-party staff, recruitment ad agencies, big gig players all run their own programmatic ad buying platforms, and they run all sorts of different publishers through that mix. And I think Stephen also mentioned slots as part of this. This is also a piece we could tackle. So programmatic also addresses some of the inefficiencies in the slot management ecosystem that exists. For a lot of corporate players, they actually don't want to take on the management of lots and lots and lots of job sites. It's not something that they have the resources for. So Appcast also goes to market with their customers, and usually big employer brands, with a pay-per-applicant solution, or with some of the customers, a pay-per-quality applicant solution, where we measure down funnel conversions and metric off of that. So it's just really a packaging play, but it's, one's bring your own media, the other is we provide the media as well.
Yep. Interesting. So in terms of the ideal customer coming for you, you've got a load of people in the ecosystem that might want to use Appcast in different ways. Is there a particular market segment that you guys are trying to grow in particular, that you've seen, hey, here's a bigger problem in the market that we need to try and solve?
I mean, anyone hiring people has a problem that we would like to help solve.
Yep. So anybody who's sitting in there needing to get more out of their ads play, they should speak to Appcast. This is the right kind of company to at least kick off a conversation with.
Absolutely.
Cool beans. Well, listen, Leah, I really appreciate you coming on and giving us a little bit of an overview of the market and where you guys are at. Exciting times, to be part of a bigger whole. Great to see that you're staying independent, and we look forward to following you guys as you go. And like you say, along with Stephen and Rene, I think it is clear that there's a lot of problems industry-wide that maybe programmatic can help solve. And if we can get there, nudge the model forward for everyone, then at the end of the day, the candidate experience will improve, as well as the buyer experience as well. Anything last minute you want to add, Leah, before I let you go?
No, thanks for having me, and Stephen and Rene as well. I mean, I think you've got some great voices in the industry here. It's one of those things where it's rise all boats, right? For us, everybody who gets on board and gets excited, we're all going to be better for it in the end. Yeah,
I think so too. I mean, this has been education for me, because I started off being ignorant and I'm ending slightly less ignorant, which is progress. I'm just looking for 1% improvements here. And I know a little bit more than I did. So this is definitely an area I need to expand my knowledge on. So thank you so much for contributing.
I think you're a solid 5% better than you were.
Do you reckon?
Solid.
You're a soft touch there, you give me a good rating there, but yeah, so 5% better from a very low base. Let's put it that way. Great.
It's a win.
Leah, have a great day and a great weekend. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Bye now.
Wow, wasn't she great? And so were the rest of the guests. I mean, I've realized that in recruitment, there's so many areas and disciplines that I know less than I should, and very obviously, programmatic is one of those. But I hope that the show has been interesting for everyone watching. I do think that the overall literacy of the TA industry with regards to programmatic is probably lower than it should be. So if you found this show interesting, please do share it with other people, not to promote Brainfood or Brainfood Live on air, but simply because it might be educational for someone who's thinking about doing something better with their ad spend. It certainly makes sense to me to be able to kind of kill ads that you no longer need, rather than just have them run to a 30-day term, or however long the term is. So I think this is a very powerful message. The last thing that Leah said as well, in terms of the fact that fake, I wouldn't say fake ads, but ads that have already been filled but stay live online, actually a big part of the reason why basically candidates hate the recruitment experience. So if we can remove that from the frame, Isn't that a good idea? So anyway, whilst I let you go, please take this link, crowdcast.io. The rest of it you can see on the link that you're watching. Go share it with someone who might be spending some money on programmatic or thinking about it, because I think they'll get some benefit from it. Anyway, thank you all for joining us. I know it's Friday afternoon and people have got better things to do. So thank you very much for all your support. We'll be back next week. We'll talk about something else I don't know about. So the topic area is going to be huge to choose from. This is Brainfood Live on Air. It's me signing off.